Well, I'm here to receive this award in honor of work done in the field of CRISPR biology. This is a field that began with the understanding that bacteria have an adaptive immune system to fight viruses. And our own research investigated not only how those pathways operate in bacteria, but also how they could be harnessed as a gene editing technology. I think that that work has advanced the field both in terms of the fundamental biology of bacteria and the way they use this kind of system to fight viruses, but also it's now, as a technology, enabling scientists around the world to change the DNA in cells, tissues, organisms in a precise fashion that allows manipulation of the genetic code. That means that we can now determine the functions of genes and how they affect every type of organism. So it's a really exciting time when this technology is opening the doors to knowledge in many fields of biology. So these advances will improve our world and they will benefit humanity by advancing fundamental understanding of genetics, the code of life, how DNA controls the way that organisms develop and the way they become diseased. And I think that in the future we will see the use of gene editing to do things like cure genetic diseases, influencing the health of people. Also potentially offering ways to avoid the transmission of disease by insect vectors, insects like mosquitoes, and also to improve the crops that we use so they can withstand drought and attacks by various kinds of viruses and pathogens. I think there's been a trend over the last 10 to 15 years that I've seen in the US and I think elsewhere to manipulate facts in science, maybe to ignore them, to avoid thinking about inconvenient truths about climate change and other things that are happening in our world. It worries me very much, and I think that one thing that has to happen is I think scientists need to be much more engaged in the conversation about how science is being done and how the results of science are being used. I think one of the things that has happened again in my career is that I've seen scientists retreating from any kind of discussion that could be considered political. And I think that we as scientists need to be much more engaged in the future to explain the importance of our work and to provide a perspective on the scientific method to both inspire future generations, but also to help provide guidance in how modern and current technologies should be used. I grew up in a family, we were living in a small rural town in Hawaii. Nobody in my family was a scientist. I loved the natural world and I just loved the idea of being able to figure out why animals and plants grow the way they do. So I was always curious about the natural world, and when I realized that it was possible to do experiments to understand nature, that really drew me into science. I'm still kind of surprised that I'm a scientist and certainly very surprised at where my career has gone. I've always just pursued my passions. I love working with people and I love doing work with people from other countries. In fact, this CRISPR research for us was an international collaboration with Emmanuelle Charpentier in her lab. And I think that I say to students that are looking at science as a possible career, it's a wonderful time to be a scientist. It's an exciting time. We've never had more knowledge. We've never had more technologies available to probe the natural world. And I think that there are opportunities for people from every walk of life. We need diversity in science. We need a global community of scientists. It's a really exciting time, and I think students should feel encouraged about pursuing this as a career. Well, I think right now, in sort of my own field, I think the whole area of epigenetics, meaning going beyond the code of DNA that's in cells, but thinking about how that information is being used to create, for organisms to grow as they do. I think that's a frontier that's, you know, very exciting. That's very kind of a focused area. In more broadly speaking, I think that I see a great opportunity right now to bring together the field of information technology, meaning computer science, artificial intelligence, being able to manipulate data and analyze data in ways that have never been possible in the past. Bring that technology together with the kind of thing that we're doing in biology, where we can rewrite DNA, we can synthesize DNA. I think this is an incredibly interesting opportunity to bring together two fields that have traditionally been very far apart, really, and have them working together to give us vastly more information about how biological systems are able to develop the way they do, and to eventually really to allow us to you know, cure diseases and prevent diseases in ways that haven't been possible in the past.